Shalom and Boker Tov, good morning, as we remember the Lord first, morning by morning. Today we're going to focus our attention on the folks of Nazareth and their response to Yeshua, and the implications of what that meant, and how we can apply this same information to ourselves today. Now, this is the second time that Yeshua comes to the hometown of Nazareth. We remember the first time he came, he was obviously rejected, and he experiences the same welcome here, rejection. In fact, it says this time that they took offense, they were offended, they were scandalized by him. This is what we read in Mark chapter 6, verses 4 and 5. It says, "Then Yeshua said to them, 'Only in his hometown, among his relatives, and in his own household is a prophet without honor.'" Then verse 5 says, "So he could not perform any miracles except that he lay hands on a few of the sick and healed them." Look what happened at Nazareth. Yeshua meets up with such unbelief from his own townspeople that it says that he could not do any miracles. It doesn't say that he would not do any miracles, but that he could not do any. Why is that? Certainly not because he was unable of his own power to do any miracle or work that he would choose to do, but it was because there was no faith on the part of the people. God doesn't force his miracles on us, much like he doesn't force salvation on us either. And we remember what Yeshua said when he stood on the Mount of Olives and he looked over Jerusalem and he said, "O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, how much I longed to gather you as a hen gathers her chicks, but you were not willing." You see, Israel's condition would soon be turned miserable. Why? The temple would be destroyed. They would soon be exiled out of the land. But Yeshua could not stop what was happening. Why? Because Israel was unwilling. So we see that when there is an unwillingness, when there is a barrier to faith and trust, God might very well choose to wait or not answer at all. Their unwillingness stopped God's intervention in their lives and the miracles that he could have performed in there. So what about us as believers? What about us when there is unwillingness in our lives? How many of us have moved away from God? Perhaps because we haven't received what we wanted, perhaps because we became disillusioned, disappointed, perhaps we blame God for not coming through with certain prayer requests, whether they be the small miracles or the larger miracles that we're waiting for. And here is when we need to sit back for just a minute and consider two very important words when it comes to our walk with the Lord. And these two words are belief and trust. While those two words, belief and trust, may sound the same, they might sound like they're synonyms, there really is a big difference between the two. Look at what James says. "Even the demons believe in God, they shudder." But you see, they don't put their trust in God. Trusting God means placing everything that you are into his hands and believing that he is able to do what he says he can. You know, there's a beautiful verse in Jeremiah chapter 9 that tells us why we should trust the Lord. The verse reads like this: "Let not the wise man boast in his wisdom, nor the strong man in his strength, nor the wealthy man in his riches. But let him who boasts, boasts in this, that he understands and knows me, that I am the Lord, who exercises loving devotion, justice, righteousness on the earth. For I delight to do these things." God delights to be lovingly devoted to us. He cares for us more than the sparrows. And if we who are evil know how to give good gifts to our children, how much more will our Heavenly Father give good gifts to those who ask him? But we need to trust him based on our knowledge of who he is. So what's the difference between belief and trust? Belief is seated in the mind. Yes, I can believe that God is real, just like the demons do. But am I putting full and complete trust in the Lord? Am I trusting him with everything that I am? Am I surrendering all to him? You know, surrender is one of the best ways we can demonstrate our trust. I could believe in something. I could sit there quietly in my belief without doing anything at all. But trust goes deeper, and it calls not just on the mind, but it calls on the heart. It calls on our whole being to get involved. Now, many of you might have heard about Charles Blondin, who became famous for his daring tightrope walks, especially over Niagara Falls. He stunned audiences everywhere with his skill of tightrope walking. He tightrope walked blindfolded, he was on stilts, in a sack, on a bike, and he even walked halfway across, sat down, cooked an omelet, and ate it right there over Niagara. Talk about breakfast over Niagara Falls. And so the story goes that one time, after having crossed the falls, pushing a wheelbarrow this time, he then turns to the crowd and he asks them, "You saw what I just did? Do you think that I could push a man in that wheelbarrow across Niagara?" And they all shouted, "Oh, yes, of course." They believed him. And then he asked, "Who is willing to get into the wheelbarrow for me to prove it?" Well, basically what he was asking was, who is willing to trust me enough with their life? And you can rest assured, no hand was raised. But that's the kind of trust the Lord is asking from us. But the story doesn't end here. Charles Blondin had a manager who organized all his events. His manager's name was Harry Colcord. And on one of those daring feats of tightrope walking, Harry, his manager, got onto the back of Charles Blondin, and Blondin carried him across the water. Well, how did the manager gain such trust in Blondin? It's because Harry spent so much time with Blondin, as he saw him over and over again with every event, that Charles Blondin, the tightrope walker, could now be trusted. Because of that trust, Harry could surrender his life into Blondin's abilities. Trust goes very far when we know who we are trusting. So belief is our first step. Paul reminds us that we must first believe in our heart and confess. But then we need to walk day by day with the Lord, learning to trust Him, leaning on Him, talking, taking the deliberate action to trust and to surrender. And then we'll see many miracles, because that kind of trust opens our eyes to all the good that God has in store for us. When the tightropes of life come our way, let's let our confidence and trust in the Lord carry us over to the other side, just like Harry did with Charles Blondin. We know the verse Proverbs, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not upon your own understanding, and in all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will direct your paths." He will show us things that we have never seen, while we continue to be carried over by Him to the other side. Have a great day in Yeshua, and be blessed. Shalom.